Chase Thomas podcast. My nephew needs me to record. See, I already hate it. I hate it.
All right, we're back here on the Chase Thomas podcast, where I'm still at the aforementioned Chase Thomas, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee. Everything School HQ, sipping his Tennessee Smokies mug because it is Smoky season once again here in East Tennessee. Eric Cain of Locked On Vols and Volquest. Eric, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Yeah, good afternoon. Doing well, man. Hope you are.
It's birthday day. It's a good time.
Happy birthday. I didn't know if you wanted to bring it on the show, but yes, happy birthday.
Thank you. Yeah, no, it's like we talked about. For the good folks in their 30s, I think they can attest. The best thing, and this can be like kind of weed its way into our on air. The reason I like my 30s so much more than my 20s is your 30s people, like, I don't get invited to as many things. I don't feel like I have to go out and do as many things. I don't have to experience. Like, I am just, I know who I am. Like, you and I, we work a lot. I think we're probably two of the most busy, like, ball media people in Knoxville, with what we do day in, day out. But that's okay. Like, it's just that people assume that's what you're doing in your 30s. Like, you're working a lot, you're a family guy, we're married, we're kind of off the radar. We are who we are. Like, it's just so nice to just be like, I know exactly who I am. Like, there's not gonna be much change for us between like 31 and 32, 33, and then 38. Like, this is kind of the deal. Like, this is kind of who we signed up. This is gonna be basically who we are from here on out.
I feel it, man. I like it. I'm a little bit different than I was about 10 years ago, that's for sure. But having the wife, having the job, having some friends, having the dog, it's good enough for me. So I feel that for sure on many levels.
Oh yeah, and like the getting married, like my wife and I talk about it all the time. Like, I don't know if it was like this for you, but I mean, I'm grateful that I met her when I did, because I'm nearly 30. Like, I kind of am who I am. I've always been like raised an eyebrow when you go, because you talked about it, when you're like a different person 10 years ago in your early 20s. When you meet the right person in your younger days, you're rolling the dice on who they're going to be 10 years later and who you're going to be 10 years later. So I was always like one of those. I'm going to wait until I figured a lot of stuff out before I go down that road. And my wife and I both being in our 30s is great, because we know who we are, and there's not going to be a whole lot of surprises on who we are the rest of the life.
Look at us now, yeah.
I love it. Well, Eric, we have some Tennessee sports to talk about here. One of the things I want to start off with, orange and white game over the weekend. It was a lot of fun. Obviously not shown a lot, and people making a whole lot of what Lane Kiffin and company was doing. But I was listening to Cole Kubelik, his Cube show this morning, which is really good, because I just love learning stuff from him. He's just so insightful, and obviously played the game at Auburn and all that, but I like listening to that one when I want to learn some more insight in terms of what schemes people are running. He was talking about Bama, and he ended up talking about Ole Miss spring game and the reaction to it. And one of the things I thought was interesting, and I wonder from your perspective, do you think it would behoove Tennessee going forward to try and do some of what Ole Miss did? And his thinking being, and I think McElroy talked about it too, was that like, they don't want to show who their number two guys are or flash anybody. So if you turn into like this little hot dog eating circus type deal, teams can't poach you, because they don't know who's doing well, who had a good spring, who you're going to count on more in the fall. Like, I'm sure part of Tennessee was like, man, we have a lot of receivers who kind of popped here. And so there's some tape of Chaz Nimrod with a touchdown, Chris Brazzell obviously playing really well, Dante Thornton and Mike Matthews obviously showing out. So the depth of Tennessee's wide receiver room stood out, I think, in this game. And you kind of wonder if, like, I understand, like, I think that's an overlooked part, and I wonder if you agree with it, that like that's maybe the new way to go about it, is you want to hide as many guys as you can, and by doing something weird, you can do that.
You know, everything's changing, and you know, the greats will adapt to that change and then thrive with that change. And so I am curious, and I've talked about this on my hit on the radio show with Tyler and Will every Wednesday. You know, what will spring games look like 10 years from now, 5 years from now? And you know, I remember back when Butch Jones was here, and he had the loudspeaker, and they were doing contests and one-on-ones and everything, and that's kind of a unique spin on it and everything. Kind of got that vibe from Ole Miss this year, except it was much cooler because there was a dunk contest. There was a hot dog eating contest. I will say this, I doubt very seriously Josh Heupel would ever want to broadcast a dunk contest, because he would not want anybody to get hurt. When Joe Milton had that orange throw before the Orange Bowl last year, I know there was a lot of people that weren't happy about that.
Yeah.
But it's intriguing to think about, because all coaches think, Tennessee's coaches very much so, but certainly not alone, that they've reinvented the wheel. That their play concepts and their designs and everything, it's never been done before. I mean, newsflash, football's been around a long time. Okay, so you can put a different spin on it for sure, but the speed option's been there forever. And so, but I mean, all coaches are like that. They don't want to show anything. So, yeah, I think you're onto something. I'll be intrigued. And with the second transfer portal window open, I bet this time next year, this SEC clause of not being able to go in the second window from one SEC team to another, I bet that'll be a thing of the past. And let's not act like tampering's not a thing.
Yeah.
There are people on Tennessee's program right now who are not in the transfer portal and on Ole Miss and Alabama and Iowa and every other team in the nation who were getting contacted through back channels saying, well, hey, man, if you want into that portal, we got a little spot for you. That's what we can do for you right here. So maybe hiding some of that, because you're right. Like Chaz Nimrod and Caleb Webb, the back end of the conversation about Tennessee's wide receivers this spring, Tennessee wants to hang on to him for sure. But, I'm just using those guys as an example. Like the grass could be greener somewhere else. And you got to see a little bit of tape from the orange and white game. So I don't know. It'll be, I agree with you. It'll be interesting to see kind of the way this navigates and how things change for Tennessee and if other teams go about it as well. I thought it was unique. I thought it was kind of cool what Ole Miss did. But at the end of the day, too, I was asked this earlier in the week. I mean, as a football fan, as a football guy, and as a media member, I'm glad that I at least got to see something, right?
Yeah.
And so I was appreciative of that, even though it was very vanilla and very simulated.
Yeah, and I just look at when you do the takeaways coming out of it, like the biggest, like something I was jotting down as I'm watching this, just that like, what are going to be the positions of strength going into summer ball? Like when you look at, obviously a lot of people were held out to be cautious, specifically on the offensive line. You want to be careful there, and I'm running back too, but a lot of that's just, they probably would have preferred to have more running backs play in this game than all said and done. But I just feel like, to me, and this is something that I've told family and friends who have been like all the Tennessee people in my life who've been kind of like, okay, what's this offense going to look like? What's because last year we kind of knew, Eric, that like it was the Jalen Wright show. Like we knew early on that this was going to be a run first type of gambit, and this was going to be kind of a pivot from what Tennessee fans saw with Heupel and Hendon Hooker and the high electric, top 10 offense and just more fun. It wasn't successful last year. It just wasn't as fun. It's just more fun to throw the ball downfield and to have Jalen Hyatt catch 5 touchdown passes against your arch rival. That's just more fun, and it's better TV. But you look at this year, I think, to me, we're going to go way more in the 2022 direction. That's just something I jotted down from the spring game and just who our options are and personnel wise, that I don't think they really have a choice with the running back room being what it is at the moment. And I just think you have to play these guys, and you're going to have to rotate more than you've ever had to at the receiver position. You can't do the 3-person guy and we're running like that. Just can't, like that cannot be part of this deal this fall. Is that your biggest position of strength? Because that's what I had circled out on offense, that the receiver room is, because defensive line is obviously the answer here. There's just no, it's defensive line. But I think receiver is just freaking deep, man. And I am so curious how Heupel and Kelsey Pope handle these rotations, because they have suddenly a lot of dudes, if they're healthy, a lot of dudes that can play and really, really help this team.
Yeah, no doubt. Biggest strength on this team is 100% the defensive line. But if you're looking at offense, has some questions coming into spring practice about, Brew's not going to be going through spring practice. Squirrel will be out there, but they should be limited with him. You're losing, Ramel Keaton, who kind of had after a really strong 2022 filling in for Cedric Tillman, kind of had a bounce. He didn't have a great year, I guess. Still led Tennessee in touchdowns receiving wise. So I had questions about that. Dante Thornton responded, and he was a guy that I thought like, okay, well, this second transfer portal window could, Gerald Mincey left. Could Dante Thornton leave? Man, Dante Thornton had arguably the best spring of anybody on the roster.
Yeah.
He was phenomenal. And what a response, because I was a huge Dante Thornton advocate last year. Even when he was struggling, I was like, if he ever figures it out, dude's going to be in the NFL. I mean, he's got length, strength. He's got speed, route running, all that. He was just kind of playing out of position a little bit. And Tennessee saw all those intangibles at Oregon and said, okay, I want to put him in the slot, because newsflash, the slot is what makes this offense go.
Yeah.
And it just didn't work out. But man, what a response by him. Chris Brazzell, a little slow to get going because new system, new team, new quarterback. But he got stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger as spring practice went on. You feel really good about him. Mike Matthews, you saw why everybody was so high on him and how he was a coveted 5-star. The adjustment he had to that gas and more Good throw by Moore as well, because it was an option route kind of stemming out there on the perimeter and threw it only to where his guy could get it, and what an adjustment he made. Braylon Staley bursts on the scene. He's a guy that I think can truly allow Squirrel White to go get a drink of water,
Yeah.
And then you still have Caleb Webb and Chaz Nimrod who have played an SEC game. So, yeah, the wide receiver position, man, huge strength for me. Great spring. And I do think that they're going to have to open it up and play a little bit more, more so than they have in years past. And, with Tennessee, they've always been a running football team. They've averaged over 200 yards. Josh Heupel's averaged over 200 yards rushing a game since he's been here. But with the question marks behind Dylan Sampson, how many guys? Last year was a 3-headed monster. This year, when everybody's healthy, Cam Selden's not healthy right now, it should be a 2-headed monster. But injuries play a factor into it as well. I think the explosiveness with Nico at quarterback, we're 10 minutes in, haven't even mentioned Nico.
Yeah.
With Nico at quarterback, who is capable, in my opinion, of making more of those plays, better decisions, and off-platform throws. I think that was my biggest takeaway. The explosiveness looks like it's returned. And it might not be record-setting, 46 points a game, leading the nation in total offense, but it'll be much better than the 31 points per game you put up last year. And kind of middle of the road in offense. And I think you're heading back in that right direction offensively.
I think so too. And I think for me, I like kind of how the depth charts kind of organize itself in the wide receiver room, where you've got Dante, and he was talking about his relationship with Mike Matthews on TPL Tennessee. And I think he's clearly way more comfortable on the outside that you talked about. Like, this is just where he wants to be. He's healthy. And I also just think we've seen, like, Jalen Hyatt made a huge jump in year 2 in this offense. I think for a lot of guys, it just takes that second year to really get a hang of things.
And maybe if you're, sorry to cut you off, but maybe if you're Chaz Nimrod and Caleb Webb, they have been here for 2 years already, but they really just got their toes wet last year. And maybe they're sitting there saying, well, gosh, look at Jalen Hyatt, look at Dante right now, man, look at Cedric Tillman. Maybe I'm the next guy that can take that huge step. And again, it goes about the culture and everything that, like, a lot of these guys at the time of this recording, Elijah Herring's has jumped in the portal. I mean, everybody wants to stay here and play.
Yeah, and we'll talk about Elijah in a second here, but I just look at it in terms of Dante and then Mike. That makes sense that grouping is together, because if Dante has a great year, then Dante's gone, and then you have Mike to step right in, and a great guy to learn from him. Mike obviously popped in the spring game, and I think he's going to be a really fun player on the outside for Tennessee. And then you look in the slot, Braylon Staley, who you've talked about, like, has had a great spring, and he just feels like more of that Jalen Hyatt. Just, he's going to be that separator. He's going to be very different than Squirrel. Like, Squirrel was has been more of the Velus Jones slot guy for Tennessee, which is extremely valuable, but he's not the vertical threat that Jalen Hyatt was. He's not the burner, and he's not going to be that guy. He's going to be, like, I wouldn't be surprised if, I don't know if you agree, that Squirrel is still probably going to lead this team in receptions this year. If I had to guess, he's still going to be a big part, but they need more of those game breakers on the outside. They need more of those difference makers. And Dante was really actually coming into his own before he got injured on that touchdown catch on the outside. On a
great adjustment.
Like, he's going to be good. Like, I would just, all the folks, I would buy as much Dante stock as I can. But the funny thing is, Brew, like, it felt like before the offseason even began, I wonder if you feel this way, Eric, that, like, Brew has to come back, where you're like, all right, we have a lot of uncertainty here going into next year. Like, Nico's first year, we need Brew in the fold. We need Brew back. And then you see Chris Brazzell in the spring, and Chris Brazzell looks really good. Dante's obviously back. You still have Caleb Webb and Chaz Nimrod. You have these freshmen who are popping a little bit. To me, I'm like, I'm so curious who starts on that opposite side. Because right now, my gut is Dante and Squirrel, if they're healthy, they are occupying 2 of those spots. Like, Chris Brazzell, do you rotate? Maybe it makes it easier to bring Brew back because you have these options like Caleb Webb, like Chaz Nimrod, like Chris Brazzell. And what we just talked about with Dante is, like, Brazzell can pop right now, but if his plan is, and you can sell these guys of, like, we'll get your feet wet, like Chaz Nimrod and Caleb Webb got last year, and Dante for a little bit as well. And then year 2 is where it's going to pop. Like, just stay with us, Chris. And then next year is the year that you really break out. But Brew is going to be the guy. I'm so curious how that side goes, because I feel like it's kind of solidified in the other 2. Over there, the competition in fall camp for that final spot. I mean, because Brew's going to miss all this time, and Brew's gets the benefit of the doubt, and we know how good he is in this offense. But there's just so much competition potentially. And we'll see if they enter the portal, if there's any portal movement in that regard. But for right now, man, I am so fascinated by those 4 guys who are all competing for what seems to be one spot.
Yeah, and I mean, there's been no portal activity there so far, and if I don't think anybody's expecting it, but like if someone does enter, it wouldn't be shocking just because of all the competition we're talking about. But man, I hope they all stay.
Oh
because,
yeah,
I mean,
100%.
just what a group, and it speaks more to like, and I mean, right now I would expect all of them to stay. I'm just saying you just never know in today's era.
Yeah.
If they all do stay, it just says, okay, I want to be here. I want to work. I want to compete. I want to be better than this guy. Like, I'm not going to run from this. And so, like, that as a fan and, as a football guy, that just speaks so much to me. So,
yeah.
With Chris, I'll say this, Chris Brazel, I went to the airport when he came in for his visit and, got an interview with him. And I remember one of the big things he stressed was, and of course, he wants to come in and ball out year one. Everybody does. But he did say, hey, Nico's going to be here for multiple years. Like, I can have him for multiple years. So, like, I remember him saying that then. I'm like, okay, he's thinking big picture. Like, not just this year. Obviously not draft eligible, but like next year, and he's still going to have that quarterback. So I think that's something that kind of goes into you're going to play, get your feet wet. We'll see what happens. But don't worry, you're still going to have another year to ball out in this offense. As for Brew, man, I'm with you. You got so many different options. And Brew's kind of an afterthought right now because he's injured, not been in spring practice. I think Brazel and Thornton are much more like the potential is so much higher for them compared to a guy like Brew, who was a former 5-star himself.
Yeah.
But what Brew brings is just consistent route running. He knows this offense, and Tennessee fans will love this. He's just got that dog in him. MRI got the dog in, like literally, like he loves and embraces physicality, and Tennessee loves.
He's a great blocker.
Receivers that go block, and it's a big part of this, and that's what he does. So, yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think a healthy Brew, and they can certainly afford to ease him back into things because they have all these options. But a healthy Brew is going to start because he's the alpha in the room. Squirrel will start. And then I'm with you. I think Dante will be on the other side. But, Brew get a sip of water. Here's Brazel. Dante goes out, touchdown. Okay, here's, Webb, Matthew, whoever it is.
Yeah.
They just have so many options, which is great for Nico and great for Joey Halsley.
Absolutely. Elijah Herring entered the portal this week. Obviously the leading tackler for Tennessee last year. I think one of the things, and I've been asked from Georgia people and around, I'm sure you have as well, Eric, about like what this means. And because if you're on the outside and you're not like inundated with daily Tennessee stuff and you're not really plugged in, like that kind of raised an eyebrow, I think, by a lot of people of like leading tackler. Why would he leave? I think this one to me, and I wonder if you share this, is like, I think Elijah came on, he got better. He was thrust into a role. He was like, it was just you were thrown into the fire because of injury with Keenan Peele. Like the plan was not for Elijah, I'm sure, to be as relied upon, where it's like, all right, man, we got to have you step up. You've got to, like, Aaron Carter and Keenan Peele both gone. And that is something that I think Tennessee was not expecting. Aaron Beasley obviously was there to help things a little bit, but that it was just a trial by fire here a little bit for Elijah. And I think a lot of Tennessee fans were, I think, too hard on him, especially early on in his tenure running things for Tennessee at the linebacker spot. But for me, I think it just speaks to just he got that he got those opportunities, he got those reps, and was a starter down the stretch. I think it's really hard for guys to then just be like, because Aaron Carter, who's still getting healthy, Keenan Peele comes back, it's hard to go backwards, you know what I mean? And be like, all right, once the toothpaste is out of the tube, like I've started a lot, like I'm ready to build off this. And unfortunately for Elijah, I think, but good for Tennessee is that they have the depth in that room now that they did not have the last few years. So it's like, we can rotate, but like Jeremiah Telander is going to be a good player. And clearly they like him a lot in the kind of spring that he's had. Aaron Carter, obviously a big get. There's big expectations for him. You get Keenan Peele back, and I wonder if Keenan, if he doesn't come back for this season, maybe a lot. Like you always wonder, like just who comes and who goes.
For sure.
Right, and I think it's okay. Like I don't think it's like so for the folks on the outside who are like, why would Elijah leave? It's because there might have been 3 guys in front of him to start this year, and he's started a lot of games now for Tennessee and played a lot of snaps. That it's hard for a guy to go back to being a rotational guy off the bench when you have showcased being a starter in SEC play. So, I mean, I wish him the best, and I think he'll catch on somewhere and work out. But to me, I just don't look at it as something that's a big deal because I think Tennessee is pretty sneaky loaded at that spot if they're healthy.
Yeah, you bring up a lot of good points. I mean, first of all, Elijah, great kid, root for him. He was the first prep commit for Josh Heupel as Tennessee's head coach. Jeremiah Crawford technically was the first one that he signed in that February signing class, but Elijah Herring was the first commit for that class of 2022, I guess. He's got limitations. He's an in-the-box player. He is he screams Big Ten to me because there's more tight ends and 21 personnel, and and the game's kind of evolving everywhere, but tight ends or big boy football is still kind of up there in the Big Ten, and so that feels like a good landing spot for him. But
I could also see him at Tech, like doing the reverse Wesley Walker, where he just catches on and he starts at Tech. I could see him being really solid there. And I think it's always like that was something that jumped out to me, where I was like, oh yeah, Tech makes sense. Michigan State, it feels like or Colorado, I think is who he's meeting with this week.
Yeah, he's going to visit there. Yeah. And he got better. It's not like he was bad, and he'll continue to get better. But he's a downhill run stopper in the box guy, and he had some limitations, and he was not, as you mentioned, expected to play 90 snaps a game. So from the outside looking in, you're like, oh, this guy led the team at tackles. Why is he leaving? I'm glad you brought up Jeremiah Telander because they like him so much. And they think the world of Aaron Carter. He was out there running around with no helmet, doing everything he could in spring, even though he wasn't medically cleared, Yeah. He was doing all he could. And you got Keenan Peely. Edwin Spillman's coming up. And guys like Jalen Smith, Jordan Burns. So, I think this group's going to be loaded and be much better than it was last year. And Elijah Simmons, Elijah Herring, we'll see. Elijah Herring, we'll see. He announced he was going to enter the portal before it opened. He did not officially go in until Thursday morning. So won't shock me. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but like if he were to pull his name out and remain at Tennessee, wouldn't shock me. I think he'd be welcome back. His brother's still here, and Caleb Herring. Yeah. That's one to keep an eye on. But if he goes to Colorado or wherever, and you root the best for him because, again, like you said, he got starter reps. Be hard to kind of go backwards. He just wants to play. It's not a money grab. He just wants to play football, and I can't fault him there.
No. Final football thing. Are you buying or selling the Vols need a portal running back? Because I think there is you see in the Volquest message boards and running back watch is basically what the Journal's Quarters is right now.
No.
I wonder if we're on the same page here because I don't think that Tennessee needs a portal running back. I think it sounds better in theory right now where you're like, you're worried about the depth because Cam Seldon's not there, because Dylan Lewis is not there. I'll believe Heupel's running game struggles when I see it. Like I'm going to need to see proof that Heupel cannot rotate and these light boxes that these running backs are going to be walking into, especially with the talent that Tennessee has on the outside, especially with what Nico is going to do potentially to really exacerbate things for opposing defenses. To me, it's not like adamantly opposed. I just don't think it's necessary. And like, I think a lot of people saw that Khalifa Keith and Deshaun Bishop they didn't have a big run. They didn't have a big breakout in the spring game, but
they were also running behind guys who are not going to be playing on the offensive line
right.
in the fall.
And I don't think so. I think even if Cam's not right and you just have to rotate with Dylan Sampson and Khalifa Keith and Deshaun Bishop for those first game or two against it, I just think the holes are going to be there for the most part. I think those guys are going to be more than capable of stepping in. I think Dylan Lewis is going to be a really good player. Obviously, I think Cam Seldon is going to be awesome when he gets back. I just wouldn't rock the boat. And I think I would just lean into hey, this is a style of play that they can rotate by committee. I mean, Jalen Wright was not this superstar guy that they brought in. They developed him extremely well, and he became much more of a complete back in his time at Tennessee. My gut says, especially like this late in the process, I would stay away. Like, I don't think they need Damian Martinez. I don't think they need to go big time portal shopping at running back. I think they'll be fine. And I think these guys are more than capable of stepping in while some of the bigger names are sidelined. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that for the most part. And I'm glad you brought up light boxes because some people on social media this week don't understand that when you have a light box, you run, and when you have 8 or 9 guys in the box, you throw.
Yeah.
That's football 101. But they really like Peyton Lewis a lot, but he didn't go through spring. So it's like, well, what do you truly have in him? Cam Seldon's going to be out. Hopefully he returns 1st of September. Maybe he misses September. We'll see. You are one sprained ankle. You are one big hit away from being in some serious trouble, in my opinion, at running back. So I get the concern. Like, I 100% get it. The hope is you can mask all that for the first couple weeks of the season before Seldon gets back and you have a healthy offensive line. But, Dylan Sampson, the reason Jalen Wright took a huge step last year is because for probably the first time in his career, he went through fall camp. He went through spring practice. He took hits. He wasn't fumbling. Like, he knows what it was. He knows what it feels like. So you want to go into fall camp and protect Dylan Sampson at all costs, but you got to get him ready. And so the threat of him turning an ankle or whatever is super real. So I get it. On the flip side of that, man, I'm not going out and paying $500,000 for a running back to come in and back up Dylan Sampson. I'm not. Like, that's not smart. That's not good business. Plus, Dylan Sampson isn't on a name and like to deal with the collective spire. I don't know what he's making, but you're going to go out and get a guy. You're not going to pay him more than you're paying Dylan Sampson. You're not going to do that.
No.
And that's things that we just don't think about, but we're starting to become accustomed to in this era of college football. So if they can find a guy that wouldn't rock the boat, that come in here in depth, sure, go take him, because I do believe that there is a need there. But do I think that's going to happen? Not really, because, again, a lot of these guys in the portal right now have got some price tags on them. And it doesn't make sense to pay that much money for a third-string running back. It just doesn't. So we'll see. Maybe a mid-major.
No.
A couple of mid-majors in there right now would make a little bit of sense. We'll see what they do. But overall, I think Tennessee can make do with Peyton Lewis, Deshaun Bishop, Khalifa Keith, along with Dylan Sampson until Cam Sutton gets back.
Yeah, Jabari Small was awesome. There was a time where Jabari Small was RB1 and Tennessee's offense was top 10 in the country. And that's no offense to Jabari. Jabari was solid in this. Yeah, but Jabari was not Deshaun Bishop can do what Jabari did. Theoretically, Khalifa Keith can be that simple. So I just think Tennessee fans who panic about that, I'm like, that's not going to be. I understand it's getting really thin depending on how the injuries are going here. I'll believe it when I see it that Tennessee's going to struggle to run the football.
I'm with you, man. Again, they've averaged 200 yards a game on the ground since Heupel's been here. He said, everything we do, it starts with a run. Everything we do, it starts with a run. So I'm with you. We'll see what it looks like, and I'll be intrigued how they play this, because they are evaluating guys in the portal.
Yeah,
but they are. I feel very confident saying they're not going to go out and throw $400,000 to somebody to bring him in. That's just not good business.
No, I don't know if you agree. This is something we talk about later, but in future pods. But mine is the corner. Cormani McLean popped in, and I saw UCF or USF with Golish was one of the top, and I'm like, that might be one where. Now we want to talk about where to spring portal shop. That might be one that I would have circled of you're an injury or two away at the corner spot from being in a lot of trouble to me.
I agree.
And not just with talent, but just with uncertainty.
And you play two at a time, whereas running back you play one at a time.
Yes. So that one to me, I think if you could add more depth at corner, I think every Tennessee fan would feel better. I feel like that's just a better way of allocating your resources and your budget. In my opinion, it's just you can never have enough corners in this sport. And I just think it's younger. It's a lot of turnover in the secondary. And if there is someone who can help you that enters the portal, corner to me makes a lot more sense than just reaching on a running back just because you're a little bit nervous about your depth there.
I think for sure if Tennessee has a safety leave to the portal or a corner leave to the portal, they will go get one for sure. If one's in there right now that kind of makes sense, multi-year.
Kamal Hadden was a spring guy, wasn't he?
Kamal Hadden was a summer guy.
Yeah.
So he was at Auburn in the spring and then decommitted or got out of his national level, whatever it was. And then he showed up at Tennessee over the summer. Same with Brandon Turnage. Both those guys showed up in the summer before 2021. So yeah, man,
that's where I would go. I want a Kamal Hadden situation. That's what I would prefer is a Kamal Hadden or Brandon Turnage situation than another running back.
They feel good about their top three at corner, and Jalen McMurray being the third, and of course Ricky and Jamal McCoy. They feel good about Andre Turrentine. None of these guys are perfect, but they feel good about Andre Turrentine, Jacoby Thomas, and Will Brooks. And then so it's that 3, 4, 5 range, both at corner and at safety. Yeah, it's pretty thin. And not Jacoby Thomas, but Jordan Thomas, if Boo Carter comes along and maybe takes that star job, Thomas can slide back and play safety too.
Yeah. Boo Carter is ultimate. Do you slide him at corner if you get a little thin where you're let's just, maybe. Boo Carter's going to have to play. That's another thing where you just jot down, you're just Boo Carter's going to have to play football.
Yeah, he's going to
have to be on the field.
He's a dude.
Yeah, Boo Carter's going to be, just a star. I'm very excited to watch Boo Carter play.
Right.
Final thing here before we go. Tennessee, sneaky. I don't think either of us had before the year. Tennessee, Kentucky would be the biggest Tennessee baseball series in the spring, but here we are, and I think it is going to end up being the most important, most interesting series for Tennessee before regional play and all that good stuff. But what are your expectations? We get Stamos back in the Friday night spot. It worked last week to perfection with him and Kazi. Kazi got back on track in the bullpen. You try out Marcus Phillips in the midweek spot here, so maybe we get some Phillips action this weekend as well. But What are you most intrigued about this series? Because Tennessee, obviously, the best part of this game, Tennessee should only they're like, we're not doing that. Mizzou and Kentucky, we're not going until April because we need to make sure that the temperatures are where we want them, because just go ahead and cancel those out. Like we don't need to do that anymore. And thankfully, I think the weather's gonna be pretty nice.
It's gonna be chilly though. I mean, it's in typical.
It's not
Tennessee,
bad chilly. It's not what it was 2 years ago. It was cold when Tennessee went to Kentucky and lost that series 2 years ago.
It was 40 and raining in the middle of May.
No,
it
won't be that.
It's going to be like low 60s, high 50s.
That's perfect. Tennessee's won a lot of games that way. I don't want the rain and cold for this Tennessee baseball team.
I think the thing I'm paying attention to is how Tennessee is going to limit the base runners, how Tennessee is going to manage the base runners. Because, and I know you're doing work over in Tennessee baseball as well. You look at Kentucky on paper, and they're a great team. Yeah. But and it's why you play the game. But you look at them on paper, so average, extremely like Georgia's lineup scared me going into that series. I'm like, man, this is a good lineup. Kentucky's lineup is okay. Yeah. The arms have been super consistent. They're okay. Nothing's popping. But what Kentucky does do is run. They have stolen 79 bases. Vanderbilt has attempted the second most steals in the conference at 77. That's 2 less than the bag stolen by Kentucky this year. So they run well. They play small ball. They get on. They bunt guys over. They play small ball. So the battery, holding runners on is going to be really, really important this weekend. So I'm intrigued to see what it looks like, man. But man.
I mean, that's why you feel good that Cal Stark's where he's at, because you can play Cal Stark a bunch this weekend, and the bats really come on of late, and he's just playing the best baseball he's played at UT. That like Cal is going to be huge this weekend, right? Like he's an X factor.
I think so for sure. I mean, and the thing I like about Cal, the bat's starting to come around a little bit. He's never going to hit 300, right? He's getting close right now, but
he doesn't have to though.
But he works so well with the pitchers, and he's that type of guy. Like he's got fire. If you ever watch Cal Stark in a game, he is like going at 10, 100 emoji all the time. Even when he wasn't in the game on Tuesday, he's out there like firing up with the pitcher and everything. So he's a guy you want on your side. He's playing really well right now. But yeah, he's going to be big this weekend, trying to control those base runners. It's Tennessee's offense just continues doing what it's doing. It had a little slower weekend against LSU, but the top 5 in that order is incredible. Dean Curley's still good, hitting towards the bottom. Now Cal hitting the way he is towards the bottom. You can get whoever's in that DH role, Reese Chapman or Dalton Bargo, to give you a little bit as well. I mean, top to bottom, this order is just so dangerous. And just give you a chance on the mound, right? I mean, Stom looked really good in his role last Friday. Causey bouncing back was incredible. That was great. Drew Beam was vintage Beam, letting everybody in the world on base, but only allowing 1 unearned run. Yeah. And then Xander just continuing to go out there and pressure every Sunday. I like this team. They're fun to root for. They're fun to watch, and they're turning into a really well-rounded ball club that's not just, like Tennessee football's offense, like, oh man, they score a lot of runs, a lot of home runs. They're starting to turn into a really well-rounded ball club. And I think if you win this series, I've been like, last couple of weeks I've been saying, number 4 in the country. Well, I don't think they're that good. You win this series, you are deserving of that number 4 ranking, in my opinion. And I know they're number 2 in one poll, but like they're number 3 in USA Today and Perfect Game in Baseball America, number 4 in D1 Baseball. You win this series, you're deserving of that record.
Absolutely. And I mean, and we'll get out on this note. I'm curious because I wonder if the Stamos thing continues on the Friday spot. We'll see on AJ Russell. I mean, I think at this point I would probably not plan on AJ Russell ever being in the rotation spot the rest of the way this year. But that's asking a lot to stretch him back out and go to that point. But can he be Chase Burns for a playoff run from a year ago? Can he be that just kind of reliable guy that shuts games down and is kind of like a de facto closer that Nate Snead's been at times? And you move Snead, because I wrote about this week where I don't know if Tony and Frank are going to go down this road, because I understand that Nate Snead has been really, really good out of the bullpen, and he's been probably your most reliable arm all year long in that spot. At a certain point, like you just kind of like with regional play, the SEC tournament, to me, I am very, very curious if they make the pivot that like, all right, Snead's got to be one of our 3 starters. Like he's like, it's nice to have him coming out of the pen and having guys like that out of the pen, but our best 3 has got to be Snead, Drew, and Xander. And then we let the chips fall where they may with our bullpen. And then hopefully AJ Russell is someone who can be there. And AJ Causey too, and Aaron Combs. Like, I just feel like we're we're getting closer and closer to like, all right, man, like we gotta put Nate Snead in the rotation.
The fact
somewhere.
that Combs is giving you back-to-back really, really good outings gives you more confidence you can do that. The fact that AJ Causey, got back on track last weekend gives you more confidence you can do that. They're using Andrew Binky. If Marcus Phillips could ever join the party on the weekends, you would have more confidence. The reason they love Nate Snead where he is because they put him in a 3-1 ball game in the 8th inning, and he was hitting triple digits, and he was pumped with so much adrenaline that LSU couldn't touch him, and Tennessee won the series. That is exactly why Nate Snead is where he is, because he closed the door on a series win on that Saturday against LSU, which is awesome. But as we've seen, man, he's gone 6 innings a couple of times in long relief. If more guys continue to come on, then I think yes. I mean, especially like in regional play and SEC tournament, like you can get a spot start out of him. He's certainly capable of it, but they love him being kind of the Swiss Army knife. AJ Russell, you're right. He will never be stretched back out. He's not going to throw 80, 90 pitches again this year. Barring a setback, he should be back mid to early to mid-May. He started to do a little bit more this week. He's been throwing a little bit more. He was shut down and just completely resting because he had a couple injuries, obviously. When he comes back, hopefully midway through May, they're going to use him in short stints. That could be to open a game. That could be middle relief. That could be to close. Picture that as like what a September call-up you have if you're Tennessee. If you get AJ Russell in the bullpen to pitch in whatever role you need him to just in short stints. And so that's the hope right now. And man, if you get that rolling in towards postseason play, that is just making already a top 5 team that much more dangerous. And arguably the best pitcher on staff who just hadn't been able to catch a break this year in AJ Russell.
It's a good problem to have, but you got to get everybody healthy. You got to keep, and you're running out of time to experiment. And that's the other thing. It's like it's go time, and this I don't know. It's a good problem to have. Tennessee is mashing, and they might set the Grand Slam record this year. They're on pace to potentially do that. So I mean, it's a good time, and it's hard to find a better 1, 2, 3 order or anywhere in the country than Semo, Burke, and Amak here. So it'll be a fun weekend. It's gonna be a fun one for Tennessee fans with Tennessee UK. But Eric, what can the good folks check out from you over at Locked On Vols and Volquest.com this week?
Yeah, tons of Tennessee baseball coverage. I'll be in Lexington this weekend, so everything you guys need to know over there at VolQuest.com. Got the Porch Podcast up at VolQuest.com with VFL Luke Lipsius. It's up right now, and everything else on Locked On Vols and, of course, VolQuest.com. Anything Tennessee related, you can get it there, and follow me on Twitter at _Cainer.
There we go. Eric, thank you as always. Have fun this weekend, and I'll talk to you very soon.
Happy birthday, buddy. Appreciate you having me on.